to give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Africa is my descent, and here I'm far from home. I dwell within a land that's meant for many men, not my own.
Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and this week we lost two legends, and I want to take a minute before we jump into the show to just remember them. On Monday, we learned of the passing of Miss Major Griffin Gracie, affectionately referred to as Miss Major. Miss Major was a fierce advocate for transgender rights and a defender of the rights of the LGBT community from Stonewall to Arkansas. Her work included providing care and safety for trans women, and her legacy will be carried on by the generations of activists who she inspired. May she rest in peace. And on the very next day, Tuesday of this week, we learned that D'Angelo, one of the greatest musicians of his era, passed after a private battle with cancer. I'm going to bring in Andy on this one because I know that for myself and everyone around me, you know, it was one of those moments where the text started going off, right? People were just devastated by the news. So I'm wondering about your thoughts on D'Angelo's legacy, Andy.
I mean, you know, it's devastating. You know, he was one of the pioneers, obviously, of neo soul.
An architect even, right?
I mean, you know, he had the legendary video, the untitled video. Right. I remember being embarrassed watching the video because, you know, my mom popped up and, like, she was over here trying to look at the bottom of the screen. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what are you looking at, you know? So, you know, he obviously, captured the eyes
moved folks.
of the women, you know, whatnot. But, you know, it's an unfortunate loss in the music industry, you know, in the culture. 51 is just too young. Yeah,
it also raises questions, or not questions, but just brings into stark relief the number of black men in the music industry, the entertainment industry generally, that have died way too early. Most of them in their 50s. Yeah, I think that it's, when I think about the fact that he gave us only 3 studio albums, but his impact was so huge. Like I saw a video of her performing with him, and I thought, oh, of course, that's why her sounds like she does, right?
Absolutely.
He did the 3 studio albums, but he also did live at the Jazz Cafe in London, and that album is epic, right? I was listening to it again last night, and I realized that there were things, and I've listened to it a million times, there were still things that I had not ever heard. And it reminded me, I was thinking, like, this actually reminds me of one of Jimi Hendrix's live albums, right? Because it's so layered, right? It was so, it was just, that album is so great. And then I thought, who else only gave us 3 studio albums? Jimi Hendrix. You think about their impact and their legacy on artists around them, right? On generations of artists to come. Right. Yeah, it's a devastating loss.
I'm a big fan of Versus, right? You familiar with Versus? Right?
Yeah.
And I just always found it interesting that he was the only one to have a solo Versus. Right. He didn't go against anybody.
Right. Because who? Really,
nobody wanted to touch
literally
him.
Nobody. Yeah. So anyway, we'll be thinking about him playing his music throughout the show, because man, what a loss. And condolences to his children, one of whom also lost his mother, Angie Stone, not long ago. So may he rest in power. We have a banger of a show for you all today. There is a new book out entitled Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock-Fleecing Frauds. Now, that is a title of a book if I have ever heard one. The author is John Fugelsang. He will be joining me next to talk about how the Bible is being misused and misquoted to further the political goals of the far right in this country. I mean, imagine, if you will, practicing Christianity, but never quoting Jesus, because his teachings would reveal you to be the charlatan that you are. Imagine that. And in the 5 o'clock hour, we are 18 days out from Election Day, November 4th. I think that's 18 days. If you have not yet turned in your ballot, what are you waiting on? Really fill it out and drop it off. We'll be joined later at 5 o'clock by Congresswoman Sidney Comlonger-Dove to talk about Prop 50, but also about the ongoing government shutdown. And then our good friend, lawyer Madiba Denny, will join us to break down the totally unshocking positions the Supreme Court justices seem to take on the cases that are before them in the first 2 weeks of their term. And we previewed this with Madiba a couple of weeks ago about it seemed like it was going to be bad, and yeah, it's bad. But when we come forward, we're going to be joined by SiriusXM radio host John Fugelsang, author of the new book, and I'm going to repeat the title of the book because it is so fantastic: Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalist, Fascists, and Flock-Fleecing Frauds. Stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Black Pack.
You're part of The Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima's award-winning team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Actual client compensated for sharing their experience. Some restrictions apply. Visit OptimaTaxRelief.com for details.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power. From seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing. Racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and I want to read something to you all right quick. Jesus was a peaceful, radical, nonviolent revolutionary who wasn't American and never spoke English, who hung around lepers, hookers, and crooks, never sought tax cuts for rich Nazarenes, was anti-wealth and anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer too, never asked lepers for a copay, never called poor people lazy, never even slightly anti-gay, never mentioned abortion, supported paying taxes, and was a long-haired, community organizing, authority questioning, anti-slut-shaming, brown-skinned Palestinian, unarmed, homeless Jew. But only if you believe what's actually in the Bible. Those are right. Those are the opening bars of a new book by actor, comedian, radio host, and now New York Times bestselling author John Fugelsang. Welcome to the show, John.
Oh, Ms. Shropshire, what a pleasure to be on your show. My goodness, thank you so much for having me.
No, of course. I've had been honored to be on your show before, and I realized the last time that we talked to each other, we were living in a very different reality, and we haven't had a chance to talk and catch up. But I was so excited when your book came out, because I have watched you on social media, because I follow you, right? And I have watched you on social media, battle folks, right, over what it is and isn't that Jesus said and taught. And so I always was like, oh, look at John out here, like telling us what's real, right? And I really appreciate that. So when the book came out, I was very excited. So I want to jump into it.
Sure.
And just, I know, the book is out. It is a New York Times bestseller. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm wondering if you could just share with our audience why you're moved to write the book in this moment.
It's a great question. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I thank you for giving me a chance to speak to your audience. Like many people, I was raised Christian in this country. I was maybe raised a bit abnormally Christian. My mom is an ex-Catholic nun. My mother was a nurse, and she worked with lepers in Malawi, Africa for many years. My father was a Franciscan brother from Brooklyn, New York, who taught history to Catholic boys and revered the social justice movement of Martin Luther King and Gandhi and Dorothy Day and the Catholic charities. And, I was raised to believe, after my parents quit the clergy and had me, I was brought up to believe that Christianity is about the stuff that Jesus taught and commanded, that we are to forgive our enemies, to turn the other cheek, to love each other, to forgive each other. And in Matthew 25, the parable of the goats and the sheep, Jesus says exactly what it'll take to be a Christian nation. He says he will gather the individuals and the nations, and they will be judged on 4 criteria: how they cared for the poor, how they cared for the sick, how they welcomed the stranger, and how kind they were to people in prison. This is the whole I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink, I was naked and you clothed me. And then Jesus tells us in Matthew 25 who his fake followers are, the ones who talk a good game, but individuals and nations who do not care for the poor, care for the sick, welcome the stranger, and are kind to those in prison. So, they like to say all the time that Christianity is under attack. And this is how Donald Trump got the evangelicals on his side.
Right.
He didn't promise to do a single damn thing Jesus commands.
Mm-hmm.
He promised them earthly power. And that's their real religion. They don't fight for God. They don't fight for the gospel. They don't care about religious freedom. They don't really care about Satan. They care about conservative Christian power at all levels of society. And if you try and talk like the Nazarene actually spoke, they'll call you woke and a globalist, Marxist cuck, whatever.
Right.
So I got sick of it, and I wrote, for years I've done this and talked about it and debated it, and finally I spent about 12 years pitching this book, Adrianne.
Wow.
Saying it's a book for believers and atheists, and it's a guide to how to use the Bible for believers and atheists when you're dealing with the Christian nationalist or fundamentalist in your life, in your job, in your school, in your social media, in your family. Because Christianity is under attack, but not from the left. It's under or not from atheists. It's under attack from this mean little self-worshiping white supremacist clique that uses Jesus as a prop while fighting against his teachings.
Yeah, and there is, you talk about in the book, you give tips, right, about how, because you say, they're counting on you not knowing the Bible. Right. And if you don't know the Bible, then that's how they can pretend, right, that they are better than you, right, that they know more.
Because most of them haven't read it, and they're counting on us not having read it.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about and so I was thinking last night, and I'm glad you talked about the actual teachings of Jesus. And when I was preparing last night, I called my dad. and I was testing him. I told him, I'm testing you because I was also raised a Catholic. And I can remember coming home from school, and having had some discussion like in the 7th or 8th grade and in religious education class and being very upset. Like, I don't believe that. I'm not sure why I'm being told that I have to believe that, right? It was something around gender roles or something or another. And I said to my dad, like, this is what they said, and I do not believe this, and we were not taught to believe this. And he said, well, there are only a couple of things that you have to know. And so he said, what Jesus taught, and the thing that you should follow is that you do unto others, right? You love your neighbor as you want to be loved. And so there's some very straightforward stuff. Like, Jesus wasn't actually ambiguous, right? in his teachings, right? Like, he said all the things that, you talk about, the Beatitudes being sort of a code, right, for how his followers have to conduct their lives. I'm messing up the exact language that you use, but like, he was very straightforward around how people should conduct themselves, but also how they should treat other people. Talk about that.
Well, it's great to me that you were put off by the talk of traditional biblical roles for girls when you were very young, because your dad was right. One of my favorite parts of writing this book was writing about feminism in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And, look, let's be honest. The world Jesus grew up in, it was rough for women. Women were legal property. They had no inheritance rights. If a man got tired of his wife, and all marriages were arranged, and then if a man got tired of his wife, he could just say, I divorce you, and kick her to the curb. If she didn't have a family to live with, it was either prostitution or begging to survive. Mm-hmm. Women were unclean when they menstruated. They were unclean when they gave birth. If it was a female baby, it was unclean for twice as long. It's like the gospel according to White Turner. Mm-hmm. And women weren't even counted as people. When it says Jesus spoke to 500 people, it means 500 men. So then Jesus shows up, and he destroys this entire patriarchal system that he was raised in. He reforms it all from within. He treats women as equals. He talks to women, which was not allowed. He talks to women who were not Jewish, which was against the law of his religion. Mm-hmm. The Samaritan woman at the well is the longest private conversation he has in the entire Bible. Right. And he was forbidden by law from speaking to her because she was an outsider. He let people touch him. The bleeding woman from the great Sam Cooke song touched the hem of his garment, who'd been bleeding for 12 years. She goes out into the crowd to touch the hem of his garment and be healed. And Jesus right away tells that someone's touched him and the power's gone out of him. She says, it was me. And he says, daughter, your faith has healed you. It's the only time in the entire Bible he ever calls anyone daughter. Mm-hmm. And he says it to a ritually unclean woman who had broken the laws of his own religion by touching him. This woman broke the taboo, and Jesus shattered it for good. Mm-hmm. He taught women, which was illegal. The famous scene of Mary and Martha, where Martha's doing the housework for the apostles, and she's mad because Mary's sitting at Jesus' feet being taught. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't teach us as kids that it was illegal for women to be taught, and sitting at the rabbi's feet means you were the top pupil. And when Jesus tells Martha to chill out, she's stressing everybody out. I always felt bad for Martha. She was doing all the work. What Jesus is actually saying there is telling women it's more important to get an education than do housework. Mm-hmm. It's like they teach us this stuff before we're old enough to know what any of it means. Right. So Jesus is this incredible feminist, right? And if God loves men and women equally, then God's a feminist too. And the women are the ones who finance Jesus' ministry. I would say there's 15 apostles, because Mary and Martha and Mary Magdalene go everywhere with Jesus and the 12. The women are the only ones who don't abandon him. They're the first ones he appears to when he comes back. And then Jesus dies, and St. Paul comes over, takes over the whole operation, and misogyny is back on the menu. And Paul, who was doing his best, couldn't help but let his hang-ups about women creep in. And so now that they decided Paul's letters about God are like pretty much Paul speaking for God, you've had thousands of years of guys who don't like Jesus' feminism, so they can go back to the Old Testament or go around him to Paul and say, hey, it's in the Bible. But the reality is, if you follow Jesus, you don't get to discriminate against anyone. His whole movement is about humility. Right. So the very notion that if you think you're better than other people because you follow Jesus, you don't really follow Jesus. His whole shtick is not about being better than other groups.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate, because you lift out these really important stories from the Bible in the book to talk exactly about this, right? To talk exactly about how the actual real lessons, right, that Christ taught. But let's talk about for a second. So who is twisting this? Who is twisting? Who has taken over? Right? What we understand, like who are these people, and why are they doing it?
Well, where do you want to start? I mean, we could start with the Roman Empire taking over.
Let's not go that far back.
Making the people who actually killed Jesus the good guys, right, and all the Jews the bad guys. Yep. We could start that far back. Yep. And once the Roman Empire took over Jesus' operation, it was no longer this movement of love and empathy and helping the poor by a Jewish faith healer. Now it was a conquering religion. Every time Christianity allies with empire, the opposite of Jesus' teachings happen. You know, we forget all the time that it was a few extreme conservative religious figures aligning with an authoritarian government that actually killed Jesus. Right. But that's our government right now. Right. And Jesus' whole mission was standing up to authoritarian power, not aligning himself with it to get ahead.
Right.
I'll say it goes even. I'll bring it up to the 20th century. I think it was really in the early 1980s when Jerry Falwell, who was a former segregationist, mm-hmm, and he had opened whites-only schools, supported apartheid. All through the 70s, after they had lost their mojo with, civil rights and voting rights and Nixon, the right-wing evangelical Christian bosses' whole movement in the 70s was that Jimmy Carter's IRS was going after universities that still practiced racial segregation. Ronald Reagan complained more about Jimmy Carter's IRS than abortion in the 1980 campaign. Mm-hmm. But it didn't test well. Segregation wasn't testing that popular in the late 70s, so they shifted their entire mission to criminalizing abortion. Mm-hmm. And the problem is the Bible never actually bans abortion. There's no penalties for it. In the Jewish faith, abortion is allowed. That is why abortions are legal and free in Israel right now. God gives detailed abortion tips for unfaithful pregnant wives in Numbers chapter 5 and Exodus 21. He asserts a fetus is property and a woman's life has more value in his eye, but it didn't matter. For 2 generations of Christians in America now, they've been raised to believe that the most important thing you can prioritize is criminalizing abortion, which Jesus never talked about, while voting against the things that Jesus actually talked about.
Yeah.
He was against the death penalty, never mentioned abortion. They don't actually follow him.
Right. So I like you say in the book, you say these people are holding up Jesus like a banner, but legislating against his teachings. And that's both around an issue like abortion, but everything that we're seeing right now in the cuts to spending bills, right? The kinds of things that are being cut so the children can't get food, right? Cuts to housing, right? And like we see this idea that I think you said something also in the book. There's essentially that kind of fundamentalism has always been in opposition to Jesus. It just is. Always. Right? Yeah.
And that's every religion, by the way.
Yeah.
The more extreme any religion is, the more extreme right-wing any religion is, right? Extreme fundamentalist Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, the more to the right you are, the more women are always second-class citizens. It's true in every religion. The more they have the sex hang-ups against women and gay people in every religion, the more they think violence is okay if my side does it because I'm on the one true side of God. Again, the more right-wing your religion is, the more you believe it, the more fundamentalist. There's always a focus on punishment over healing, and there's always this penchant for victimhood, this narrative of persecution that justifies any cruel things we've done because others have done it to us. It doesn't even matter the religion. Fundamentalist Muslims have more in common with fundamentalist Christians than the Christians do with liberal Christians.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate all this. I have like 27,000 questions for you that I'm sort of going through. But we are going to...
I'm so honored to be on your show. You come on my show and you're brilliant all the time. This is a thrill for me.
So we're going to get into at least half of them when we come forward. So stay with us. Lots more to talk about with John Fugelsang.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has unveiled his 2026 budget proposal, which includes a new tax on social media companies expected to raise $31 million.
It is far past time we treat social media companies the same way.
The plan cuts 446 city jobs, but avoids hikes to property, grocery, and garbage taxes. A music educator, Christopher Alberts, who is Black from the School Without Walls, has been named DC's 2026 Teacher of the Year. Black Mayor Muriel Bowser joined in celebrating Alberts, who's taught for 21 years and earned 4 Grammy nominations for Music Educator. And a judge has sided with rapper Lil Wayne in his legal battle with former attorney Ron Sweeney. The dispute began in 2019 over a disputed 10% fee Sweeney charged. A New York judge ruled the agreement invalid, freeing Wayne from paying millions. Sweeney can now only seek reasonable fees to be decided later. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Tough rolling out of Agora Hills, southbound side of the 101, getting away from Canaan Road, taking you into downtown Los Angeles. Now that's just over 32 miles. It's going to take you just under 2 hours to complete. Also tough is the drive on the 5 in Burbank, southbound slowing away from Buena Vista. Delays beyond Elysian Park as you continue all the way to the 605. And the 2 southbound, last check it was wide open. Not so much anymore. That southbound side loading up from Verdugo Road. Delays taking you ahead to the 5.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The odds are not in the Milwaukee Brewers' favor in their attempt to come back from an 0-3 deficit against the Dodgers. Only one team in the 122-year history of Major League Baseball has battled back from 0-3 to win a postseason series. The Boston Red Sox did it in 2004 when they caught up with the Yankees and beat them in Game 7 to win the American League Championship. A win for the Dodgers tonight in Game 4 will make them the first defending champion to return to the World Series since Philadelphia in 2009. UCLA's football team is 2-4, but they are 2-1 in the Big Ten Conference. The Bruins are at home Saturday against Maryland. A win for the resurgent Bruins keeps them in contention for the Big Ten title. 4 p.m. kickoff at the Rose Bowl. USC is at Notre Dame Saturday. The 5-1 Trojans need a win to stay in contention for the 12-team college football playoffs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Established in 2020 during a time of deep racial unrest across our state and country, the Black Freedom Fund was created to make sure that leaders and organizations working to support Black communities and build power have the resources they need to stay in the fight for the long haul. We believe that those closest to the issues impacting our communities know best how to solve them. That's why in just the last 5 years, we've granted more than $45 million to over 200 grassroots organizations across California. That is the largest collective investment in Black organizing in history, and we're just getting started. We are clear-eyed and committed, more now than ever, to our people, our power, and our possibility. Join us in creating a future where Black people harness their full power to shape their lives and realize a just world for all. Learn more at fundblackfreedom.org. That's fundblackfreedom.org. The Black Freedom Fund is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, there was a woman in the Bible days. She had been sick so very long. But she heard my Jesus was passing by, so she joined the gathering throng. And while she was pushing her way through, someone asked her, "What are you trying to do?" She said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be made whole." She cried, "Oh,
We are continuing our conversation with Sirius XM host John Fugelsang, author of Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalist fascists, and flock fleecing frauds. So, John, I want to do something right quick because there's lots of chatter in the chat and apparently on my phone where people are texting me.
Oh dear, am I getting you in trouble, Adrianne?
You are not.
Trouble?
People love it, but that's the reason why I see that some folks join the show late because they're like, "Who is this guy? He's so great. What's the name of his book?" So his name is John Fugelsang, and his book is called "The Separation of Church and Hate." And I'm glad we were able to throw that Sam Cooke in there for you since you mentioned it.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Next one you got to play is "Jesus Gave Me Water," which is about the Samaritan woman, and it is the best up-tempo a cappella gospel Bible song in history. But I learned a lot of this from Sam Cooke first, and he was another artist who really made a hit on the gospel circuit before he transitioned to pop. And by the way, thank you for your conversation about D'Angelo earlier. That was really moving. Yeah. And we did an extended tribute to him the other night, and I just don't think there's anybody like him. And I was so moved by your comments about him earlier.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, it's a big loss. I've been listening to him for since Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more. I want to jump into. I found the exact words about how you talked about the Beatitudes, and so I want to come back to that for a second because I do think that there's something about it's just really hard to twist Jesus's words, right? And so you talked about the Beatitudes as an ethical code of conduct, right, for his followers. And it's when we think about the Beatitudes, it's like blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. I mean, he really, he laid things out, but he also made it clear, like, what you need to do and how you need to act, right? He talked about humbling oneself, right? In Matthew 23:12, he says, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. This is the complete and total opposite of the way in which people who are currently running our government behave.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, Jesus was the original guy behind No Kings. Because after one of his sermons, they tried to make him a king, and he retreated into the desert to be alone because he consistently rejected earthly power. That's Satan offering him all the world in his temptation in the desert, and all this will I give you if you'll serve me. I mean, Jesus didn't want the power. He kept saying, my kingdom's not of this world.
Right.
Christian nationalists take a look at that big, heavy cross Jesus tells them that his real followers are going to have to pick up and carry, and following his actual teaching is not quite so convenient. That's why these right-wing Christian nationalists tend to turn to Satan and say, hey, I'll take the deal for the power, and I'll keep Jesus' name as a prop.
That's such a great analogy for where we are right now. When we think about all the things that are going on in the way that America is being debased, right? That whole, what you just said is, like, that'll preach, as they say. And I think the book is filled, right, with these kinds of analogies that it feels like are really important for us to understand and have a handle on right now, right? So whether or not
you're narrative back. And to take it back from these people who've twisted it. I mean, like, these people with their homophobia, and they're putting people in jail for abortion, they have set the terms of the debate using terms that Jesus himself would have rejected. I mean, you can't be a homophobe and claim you follow Jesus. It doesn't comply with the Sermon on the Mount. I mean, you're not supposed to judge. But again, this is the world I grew up in. People will hate who they want to hate in spite of Christ's commandments, and they'll just say, well, it's in the Bible somewhere. Which is why I was so glad you read some of the Beatitudes, because, nowadays, if you try to read the actual Beatitudes, these Christians will call you woke for it.
Right.
And you'll never see these right-wing Christian politicians or groups fighting to put Jesus quotes on a classroom or courtroom wall. Have you noticed it? They talk a good game about Jesus, but they never fight to put his quotes up anywhere.
It's as if there are not red letters in the Bible. I guess it's sort of right there. Right, like Matthew is all red practically, right? Like that, all of that's right there for anyone who actually cares to read it. But it doesn't fit the agenda, and particularly when we think about the way that fundamentalists have taken over Christianity, right? And when you talk a little bit about this, in fact, you break down, and I know I'm gonna get this wrong, but you break down in the I think at the beginning of the book, this sort of 3 different versions of people who are twisting the Bible and twisting the words of Jesus, and only citing things from the Old Testament, right? The sort of that you.
Well, I mean, sure, there's lots of groups that do it. I mean, there's Christian nationalism has just become an umbrella term for right-wing Christian folks. But same with fundamentalism as well. I mean, there's you can get into all these 7 Mountain Mandate people and New Apostolic Reformation. These crazy people like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, right. America's creepiest youth pastor. But at the end of the day, look, Jesus modeled servant leadership. He was about washing his disciples' feet, teaching that the greatest among you has to be the servant of all. He was always talking about going to the margins and helping the least of us. And whoever is suffering is who I am, and that's why you must help them, because what you do to the lowest person is what you do to me. The dude was not about total right-wing domination of the local school board. And this has always been the greatest struggle in the history of Christianity, right? You've had the authoritarian Christians since Rome first took over and began waging the Crusades and slaughtering Muslims and Jews and pagans. But here's the funny thing, and this is what I really want to stress in the book. The whole history of this religion is authoritarian Christians committing all acts of atrocity, but it's always the Jesus followers who resist them, right? So you got the Crusades, and they're slaughtering people, and it's St. Francis of Assisi who quits the war, preaches peace, walks unarmed through a battlefield to negotiate peace between a Muslim warlord and a European army. Right. You got Columbus and the doctrine of discovery, where the Pope says, go off and rape all these lands and steal their resources, and it's okay as long as you force Christianity on the people. And so Columbus is raping and mutilating in the shadow of the cross, but it was the Catholic priest on his last voyage, Bartolomeo de las Casas, arguably the first act of protest by a white person in this hemisphere, who did object to how he was treating the indigenous people and wrote to the Queen to protest the enslavement. Like, they knew it was wrong back then. Right. You've got slavery in America, and it's propped up by Christianity, and it's the Christ followers like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and the Quakers who resist. You got the Holocaust, and you've got Christ followers like Dietrich Bonhoeffer standing up to the Christian nationalism of the Nazis, and Bonhoeffer gave his life for his Jewish brothers and sisters. You got the capitalist Christians exploiting workers, and you got Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker movement fighting for more decency and an end to child labor. I mean, you got segregation is propped up by authoritarian Christianity, and it's a Baptist preacher out of Atlanta, Dr. King, using the scriptures to shame white America out of this apartheid. That's the entire history of religion. It is all Christian authoritarianism, but it's always the Christ followers and their allies who push back.
So
always.
So important, and particularly as we are going into tomorrow, right, where there will be millions and millions and millions of people who will come out for No King's Day protests across the country to say exactly that. We do not consent to this. This is not who we want to be, and it is not who we will allow this country to become. And so I think that that's really, really important. I know that and I say this on the show all the time, I can sometimes start the show like in the darkest place. It's very bad. There's no light. And then one of the guests will always be like, yeah, sure, but, right. And that was a great yeah, sure, but, right, is that there have always been people who push back. And not only do they push back, but they win. Right, like the history of this country is those people not only standing up, but pushing all the way back and ultimately winning. Whether we have to come back and refight, relitigate things, down the road, it is the history. When we talk about the moral arc bending toward justice, that is what the history of this country is. When we come forward, I want to talk a little bit.
Can I compliment you? Can I praise you for 1 second though? Because
yes.
I know what it's like to go on the air and just feel like you don't want to talk about it, and how can I face this? It's all so awful and fascist and racist, and they're terrible. But what you do when you push through it, Adrianne, that's you going past your own comfort zone to be of service, because you got to do a show.
Yeah.
You got to show up, and you have to give information and be entertaining and not be depressing. And that is you performing a service, which is what Christianity is all about.
Yeah.
It's the lazy ones who will not push past their comfort zone and would rather just sit and be miserable and be toxic and look down on people because their hearts are too afraid to take a chance on love and discomfort. And that's Jesus' whole mission. It's all about, and again, you don't need to believe in this guy as a literal thing to debate this. Atheists can do this too, but Jesus' mission was about transformation, never domination.
Yeah, and radical love, which we'll talk about on the other side as well. So we have a lot more with John Fugelsang when we come forward. Stay with us.
Water, and it was not in well on that woman he had pity. She ran back to the city, crying glory, hallelujah, and did his wonders tell. She left my Savior singing, she came back to him bringing the town seat of the water, Lord, and it was not in the well. Yes, gave her water, Jesus gave her water.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
In San Diego, kids are standing up against big tobacco.
We are here to discuss the urgent issue of vapes being sold near schools and other places where people gather.
I was enticed, like so many others my age, and this is exactly how the tobacco market was trying to get me to react, and I was completely unaware.
Today, over 100 California communities restrict tobacco sales near youth spaces, like schools and parks. Learn how these teens and other Californians are beating big tobacco at undo.org.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are wrapping up our conversation with New York Times best-selling author John Fugelsang, author of Separation, Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock fleecing frauds. I want to throw in some news from this week to talk about a little bit that is, I think, tied to your book, right? And so one of them was these text messages, these racist text messages that came out from a number of young Republicans from states.
Not that young.
Not that young at all. Not that young at all. Although J.D. Vance said they're kids. They're kids. What are you going to do? They're young men. What can you do? They're 30,
wow, what a
40.
shock. J.D. Vance doesn't mind racism and anti-Semitism again. I can't believe it.
Right. But one of the things that was, so they talked about a lot of stuff that I won't repeat. People can go and look up the text if you want to. I believe it's in a Political article. But one of the things that they talked about in their chat group was how much they love church, how they go to church and how they love church. In the same thread where they were talking about raping their political enemies, calling, black people monkeys, right? All of this in the same chat where they're talking about how much they love the Lord.
Yeah. This is our history. America is the only nation on earth where our history of Christianity is completely entwined with a history of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. There's no other country that began in Christianity and slavery at the same time. Right. So this rock is literally built on that kind of disgusting hypocrisy. I mean, 28,000 racist messages. 28,000. That's not a lapse in judgment. Right. That's a damn doctorate curriculum. Right. I mean, these people are supposed to be the future of this party, and the future of this party looks a lot like Germany in 1939. Right. And you'll notice Donald Trump didn't make any comments about this because he never condemns a Nazi unless the Nazi's late to the rally.
Right.
But we shouldn't be shocked by this. What we also shouldn't be shocked by is that some of these racists, some of these degenerates, of course they're going to claim to be Christian because that's their religion. Their religion is they are better than you. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about fundamentalists of all religions, right? Mm-hmm. They don't think they're better than you. They think God thinks they're better than you. You know, spiritual people use religion to try to be better people, right? But fundamentalists use religion to prove they're better than other people. Right. So I'm not surprised by this at all, and we should not be surprised when we see. I mean, I am surprised and delighted by how many Republican brothers and sisters have mounted a backlash to this and said it was wrong.
Right.
But J.D. Vance is leading the resistance to decency. Do not be surprised to see some of these people playing the victim circuit, claiming they're victims of the woke mob, and even running for office based on this notoriety, because woke is the word now that, used to be awareness of racism, and it's now a word that racists use against anti-racists.
Right.
Every decade they got to find a new word that means empathy and love, and weaponize it to make love sound evil, like bleeding heart or politically correct or social justice warrior or virtue signaling, and now it's woke.
Right.
In decency, empathy, anything Jesus talked about, they have to find a way to make it a smear.
Yeah, and they will, without a doubt, and already have, and J.D. Vance was sort of leading the charge around this, is around making them the victims, right? Making them the victims and
Always.
sort of embracing that. As I agree, I think, we'll see these people running for office somewhere next year. I want to bring back up
just remember, Mr. Vance, if someone actually tells the truth about the tragically murdered Mr. Charlie Kirk, and whose murder was despicable and evil, and I wish he was still here. But if you tell the truth about his very public, very racist comments, J.D. Vance will try to get you fired from your job.
Right.
But these people who are spreading racist comments, he will protect them. Folks, we don't. J.D. Vance is the guy who spread the racist lie about the Haitians eating pets.
That's right. Yeah.
And after the Republican governor said it was a lie, the Republican mayor, the chief of police, after the lady with the missing cat found her cat in her basement and the Wall Street Journal confirmed it, this guy still spread it, and so did Trump, and they're the ones who go around bragging that they're Christian. The media is never going to have the guts to call him out on this, and the Democrats are never going to have the guts to call him out on this. It's up to the rest of us to call these fake Christians out on Jesus' own terms.
Yeah, and with his own words. I want to go back to one more of the Beatitudes.
Please.
I'm going to tie this in very poorly, but I'm going to do it anyway. So. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I wanted to pull that one out because the U.S. president went on a very bizarre rant earlier this week, I think, talking about how he didn't think he was going to heaven. He didn't think he was going to make it. He said he wasn't. I'm not on the path. And I just want, but he's also been on this like campaign, which is also bizarre. Who campaigns for the Nobel Peace Prize? Like, who does that? And I'm wondering if someone read that to him.
Desperately insecure narcissist with no impulse control.
That person. I'm wondering if someone read to him the Beatitudes and was like, "Which can check these off? Can you do any of these? Any of these work?" And he was like, "Maybe I could do the peace one." But what is that? I mean, because he seemed to be, like he talked about it, like he was been saved by God and was on, some martyr trip before, and now he's like, "I don't think I'm going to make it." What is that?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Donald Trump doesn't want peace. He wants a prize. Donald Trump does not give a damn about the suffering of people in Palestine. His deal does nothing to change the conditions on the ground the day before the atrocious Hamas attack on Israel. This is just saying, let these Gazans return to their destroyed town and their destroyed families. But there's no plans to make their lives better. It's still an open-air prison. They're still expected to live under an apartheid system. Just they don't have houses to live in anymore. And they're not letting the aid in. Donald Trump doesn't care about peace. This is a guy who lied that he opposed the Iraq war once that war got unpopular. But he's on Howard Stern saying, we got to take Saddam out. Right. This is a guy who can't stop praising Vladimir Putin's murderous invasion of rape and mass slaughter of civilians in Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who's murdering people in boats off the coast of Venezuela because he says they're bringing drugs and he's offering no evidence. This is a guy committing troops to American streets that have too many black folks in them. He is not an anti-war guy. He's not a pro-peace guy. He wants a damn prize because Obama got one. Yeah, that's it.
Yep,
he is a giant man baby.
Right, there it is. So I want to come back to this idea of resilience, and I'm so glad that you brought it up in such a beautiful way. Because I was also, when I was preparing, I was reading Aubrey Hendrick's book, The Politics of Jesus. Guy. Right.
Now that guy's the real deal, man. That man's like my Obi-Wan Kenobi. I worship that man.
And he says in the book, Jesus's actions have another purpose as well, to demonstrate to the masses that they had the right and the power to challenge those who lorded it over them. And it's such a good reminder about why people are coming out tomorrow, and why it's so important that people not, authoritarianism has a playbook, right? And to isolate people and to make people feel fearful. And doing the exact opposite helps us all to sort of push forward, right, in the work that needs to be done. Talk a little bit about Jesus saying that it's that it's okay to push back, right, against those who would lord over you. And let me say this, we have about a minute.
Yeah, okay. Well, I will say thank you so much. Conservative power is consistently what Jesus stood up to time and time again. He didn't align himself with power. He didn't suck up to power to try to get ahead. Whether he was calling out the authoritarians among the religious leaders, calling out the wealthy who were worshiping their own stature and possessions while denying the suffering of the poor, calling out the imperial government of Rome, whose hunger for power led to their own collapse, calling out the capitalists in the temple, who were exploiting the poor believers. I mean, consistently, these modern right-wing Christians have been suckered into this trap of aligning with power instead of challenging it, and that's what Jesus always did. They worship Rome. They worship empire. Rome took over Jesus's operation. I mean, there's cultural appropriation, and then there's taking over the movement of a guy you executed. Right. That's what Rome did, and that's what these modern Trump lovers are doing. They worship Caesar because he hates the people they hate, but they'll wave around a Jesus flag to say that they're better than you and go into heaven. When it comes to his teachings, they don't like him.
Right.
Matthew 25. They vote against it.
Right. Okay. New York Times best-selling author. I love saying that. John Fugelsang, author of Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalist Fascists and Flock-Fleecing Frauds. Thank you so much for taking time to come on and have this conversation with me. I'm going to make sure that all these people that are texting me and in the chat not only get the name of the book, but also get the book, because it really is a wonderful book.
Oh, God bless you, Adrian. And thank you again. I just love you so much. I admire you so much. Like, you're one of the people that talks me off the ledge through your brilliance and your work. And thank you for coming on my show. And thank you for letting me come here and drag your show down to my level. It's really an honor.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and congratulations on the book. When we come forward, we're going to be joined by Congresswoman Sydney Kamlager-Dove, my Congresswoman, to give an update on the shutdown and talk about Prop 50.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. New York City is launching a new NYPD domestic violence unit to address rising cases. Black Mayor Eric Adams says the unit will improve investigations, officer training, and survivor support.
Domestic violence, gender-based violence continues to cause pain and